What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS4 video. So we do have a new jailbreak 6.72, although the version that is out right now is an unstable jailbreak, but we will be getting a stable version. Spectre is working on a stable version, so hopefully we'll get that sometime soon as well, and then we can all enjoy this new jailbreak. However, I am getting people asking me quite often now how to buy a PS4 to guarantee that it's going to be on 6.72 or lower so that you'll be able to jailbreak it. Now, I know it does say all over this website right here that there's a 7.02 exploit, but that is a kernel exploit for 7.02. You also need a WebKit exploit on 7.02 as well in order to get a jailbreak, and the latest WebKit exploit's only available for 6.72. So that's why we have a 6.72 jailbreak, not a 7.02 jailbreak. So right now you need to make sure, if you're wanting to be able to jailbreak your PS4, you need to make sure you get one that is on 6.72 or lower firmware version. The last thing you want to do when you're trying to get a PS4 that's going to be jailbreakable is to buy one, and then when you get it, it's on a higher firmware like 7.50, and then you're not going to be able to jailbreak it. So that is what this video is all about. I'm going to give you guys a full guide on how to pick out a PS4 when you're going to buy one that's going to be on 6.72 or lower, so that you will be able to jailbreak it. As soon as the jailbreak does release, that's the best time to buy a PS4 that's going to be jailbreakable, because the longer you leave it, the newer model PS4s are going to come out, like bundles for Cyberpunk or Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us 2, and they're not going to be, they're going to be newer models that are going to be on higher firmware, so it's going to be harder as time goes on to get PS4s that are on 6.72 or lower. So getting it as soon as possible is the best chance that you'll be able to get a PS4 that is going to be on 6.72 or lower. Okay, so let's get started. So if you're looking for a PS4 that's going to be on 6.72 or lower, the first thing I would recommend doing is you head over to this website, sce.party, and then you go to the firmware section, and then click on System, and this lists all the different firmwares. And if you click on the firmware like 6.72, it tells you the release date of that firmware version. So if you look at the next firmware that came out after 6.72, which was 7.00, look at the release date of 7.00, which was the 8th of October 2019. And then basically all you need to do is make sure that you get a console that was manufactured before that date, preferably before that date. Technically, if you get a console that's manufactured in any time in October 2019, it's probably going to be on 6.72 or lower. But just to be extra safe, you should get a PS4 that was manufactured before the 8th of October 2019. So the next question is, how do you actually determine whether or not your PS4 that you're going to buy is actually manufactured? How do you know when it's manufactured? Because it doesn't tell you when you go to buy a PS4 what the manufacture date is. So the trick to doing that is to get a bundle, a PS4 that's bundled with a game that came out before October 2019. So for example, like this Spider-Man bundle or the Modern Warfare bundle, because Modern Warfare came out in, I think, August 2019. Then you've got like FIFA 20 right here. FIFA 20 came out in, I think, September 2019. And then all the other sports games as well, like Madden NFL 20 or NBA 2K20, they all came out around about the same time, September or August 2019. So they would all be fine. Because the thing is with these bundles is that they're limited supply. They make these bundles when the game comes out, so you know that the PS4 that's bundled in with that game was manufactured around the time that that game came out or before then, not after. Therefore, you know, if you get a bundle that comes with a game that came out before the firmware version released, the 7.00 firmware came out, then you know that that PS4 is going to be on an older firmware than that firmware version. So that is the best way, because you can actually determine roughly when that PS4 was manufactured based on the game that's bundled in with it. However, that does not apply to these other bundles where there are 3 games bundled in with the PS4, because these ones were made much later on. So, obviously these are older games, but because they're bundling them all in with the PS4, that does not guarantee that the PS4 is going to be on an older firmware. They make these bundles with like PlayStation hits, the best kind of PlayStation games. They make these bundles much later on. So you cannot guarantee with these bundles, with the 3 games, that the PS4 is going to be on an older firmware. Only use this method on single game bundles like, Spider-Man, Modern Warfare, FIFA 20, then you're good to go. So that is the best way to determine whether or not you can get a PS4 that's on a lower firmware, is to get one of these bundles a PS4 that's bundled with a game that came out before the next firmware version launched after 6.72. So that's October 2019, so just get a PS4 that's bundled with a game that came out before October 2019, and then it's going to be on a firmware like 6.72 or lower, and you'll be able to jailbreak it. So that is essentially the best thing that you can do. The next thing you can do, let's say you can't find any bundles, because there's actually not that many available on Amazon. Like if I look at Amazon here, this is the US Amazon. So there is a Modern Warfare bundle, but I think there's only like one of those left in stock. And yeah, there's not that many bundles actually available on Amazon, even on the UK Amazon as well. If I look here, you can see this is currently unavailable. Most of the bundles are unavailable right now. So for some reason, there seem to be in short supply, at least on Amazon. I haven't really checked other online retailers. So let's assume that you can't find a bundle and you have to go with a different method of getting a PS4 that's on an older firmware. Well, the next thing you can do is, of course, you can get one of these original fat model PS4s, the ones that are discontinued. Those ones are guaranteed to be on a much older firmware than 6.72. So if you get one of those PS4s that's new and unopened, then it's guaranteed to be on an older firmware. Obviously, you don't want to get pre-owned consoles because the person who owned the console before you has probably updated it to the latest firmware. So, it doesn't really work with pre-owned consoles, but if it's a brand new console that's never been opened before, then you can guarantee it's going to be on an older firmware than 6.72. Beyond that, there's a few other things that you can do. If you head to PS4 Dev Wiki, you can get the serial numbers of different consoles. So with the Slims, you've got CUH-20 and CUH-21 and CUH-22. And then with the Pros, you've got 70, 71 and 72. So basically, you want to go with one of the models that's a 20 or 21 or 70 and 71 instead of a 72 or 22, because these 70, 71, 20, 21 models are older. They were manufactured probably a few years ago, so they're guaranteed to be on an older firmware version. Whereas the 22 models are the more recent ones. So if you can find one of the PS4s on an older model, and you can find the model number, like if you just click on a PS4 here and you zoom in, so where it says Jet Black or Glacier White, you'll have the model number above or below it. As you can see here, this one is a CUH-2216A, so it's one of the newer models. However, when you're buying, just PS4s off Amazon, like this one here, they just use a stock image. So obviously, if you're just going to buy a normal PS4 like this, you cannot guarantee what the model number is going to be, because they just use the same image and sell you multiple PS4s that are all on different model numbers. So you should only use the model number if it's a PS4 that's bundled in with a bunch of games like this, because then all of these were manufactured at the same time, so they'll all be using the same model number. And also, of course, if you're going to a physical store to buy the console, you can actually see the box that you're buying, and then you can determine what the model number is. So that's another thing you can do, is go with one of those older models. Now, let's say you're at the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is you cannot find one of the older model numbers, you cannot find a bundle with an older game, and you cannot find one of the original PS4s, or you're trying to get a PS4 Pro, so that's off the table for you. Then the last thing you can do is you can go with a model that is a 22 model or 72 model, but make sure it's a 7215 model. So you've got 7215A, 7215B, then you've got 7216A and 7216B. And you've got the same thing with the Slims. You've got 2216A, 2216B, 2215A, 2215B. So preferably, if you can find a 7215 or 2215 model, those are going to be probably on a firmware that's like 6.72 or lower, whereas the 2216 models or 7216 models, they are kind of 50-50. If it's a 7216A, then you might be in with a chance, but if it's a 7216B, then you're really taking a risk there. Same with a 22. If it's a 2216B, then you're definitely taking a risk. So the best thing you can do, like I say, is find a 2215 or a 7215 model, because they're slightly older than the ones that are being manufactured today, which are the 2216Bs and the 7216Bs. So for example, this one here, PlayStation Hits, you can see it's a 2216A. So I mean, that is actually quite likely that it could be on a firmware 6.72 or lower. I personally would rather not take the risk on that one though. So this one, on the other hand, on the US Amazon, it's a CUH-2215B. So that one should be fine because it's a 2215 and not a 2216 model. So if it's a 2215 model, then it should be fine. It should be on 6.72 or lower. But if it was a 2216B, then you should not go for it. Even that Modern Warfare bundle here that I said would be fine, it's also a 7215B, not a 6. So it's a 15 instead of a 16. So yeah, that is basically my advice. So just to recap, the best thing you can do to guarantee you're going to get a PS4 that's on 6.72 or lower is you buy a PS4 that's bundled with an older game that came out before October 2019. That is going to guarantee that that PS4 is going to be on 6.72 or lower. Beyond that, you can get one of the original fat model PS4s that's never been opened. Then that's guaranteed to be on a firmware lower than 6.72. Beyond that, you can then try and get a model, a PS4 that's an older model, like a 2.0 or 2.1 model or 7.0, 7.1 model, and it will also be on an older firmware version that's going to be jailbreakable. Or at the worst case scenario, you can get one of the newer models, 7.2 or 2.2 models, but just make sure that it's a 2215 model or a 7215 model instead of a 726 model, because even though a lot of the 7216 models will still be on 6.72 or lower, like the 16As instead of the 16Bs, it's still risky, whereas the 2215 models and the 7215 models, it's less of a risk. They're more likely to be on an older firmware version. So yeah, that is basically it. And obviously don't buy pre-owned consoles, especially if the person is not telling you what firmware the pre-owned console actually comes on, because then you're taking a huge risk. It's very likely that people who own pre-owned consoles have updated them to the latest firmware and they're not going to be jailbreakable. And yeah, you just got to watch out for that. And also you got to watch out for scammers, people who are saying that they're selling a PS4 on 6.72 and it turns out that, you know, they're just lying just to get you to buy it, and it turns out it's on 7.50 or something like that. So let's say a 7.02 jailbreak comes out, say, in a few months' time, then the same thing applies. Basically, you just look at the firmware that came out after 7.02, which was 7.50. You look at the release date, April 2020, and you just make sure you get a console that was manufactured before April 2020. Simple as that. So the same thing applies for future jailbreaks as well. So yeah, anyway guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one.